It's the Wednesday Wisdom Show, and you need to know, is the law of attraction a spiritual law? Or even a thing? Yes, it's a thing. It's not a spiritual thing. It's a kind of inverted, disguised, miniature limitation of an actual spiritual law that exists called equivalence of form. Where we live is much bigger than what we imagine. There are laws in this huge system, forces that build and drive the life that we live, but we can't see even 2 inches in front of us as far as what can occur and what will occur. And if you don't believe me, then what do you think is going to happen in 3 seconds? Okay, so if you thought you'd still be sitting here and waiting for me to start talking again, you were right. But did you really know what would actually happen in 3 seconds? Someone could have come to your door. There could have been a flood in your kitchen. A comet could have hit your neighbor's house. Anything could have happened. And you know that that's so, because the things that we see on this level aren't running this level. We imagine that we are, and that's why the law of attraction is a thing to us, because we're trying to understand the big picture by things that only appear to us on this level. And by this level, I also mean level of concern and identification with life within us. But the larger forces are actually what are creating and guiding life, building it to be what it is. But our idea about where desire comes from and the things that we want and what we want to project, they're backwards. The law of attraction goes like this. We want something. And we're afraid that maybe we can't get it. But instead of being involved in the things that we are afraid of or the doubts or whatever, we set those things aside and we just concentrate on the sensation, the feeling of actually living in that state or those things, with those things that we desire. And the idea is that as a result of doing this, and by being on the same sort of frequency as what we desire, it attracts that thing to us. What's not explained in this thing about the law of attraction is, where did that desire come from in the first place? According to the larger science of life, the place where real spiritual laws exist, thoughts don't precede desire. Thoughts don't make desire take shape. We're actually not attracting something to us. Nature is setting up a situation by placing a desire in us first in order to attract us to where it wants to take us. And we don't have an ability to make that next thing happen or not. But the law of attraction is telling us, well, yes, we do. Because look, I have a desire, and then I use my thoughts, and the thoughts attract the thing that I wanted to have in the first place. But in the larger scope, the place outside of where we can perceive and why we appeal to these sort of supposed metaphysical means of getting what we want, that place outside of us is the place where not just all the goodies exist, but where the desires exist. We have this assumption that I had a desire and it was my desire, and then I went about trying to get it, and then I wanted to attract it to me. But we don't own our own desires. They don't arise in us. We didn't make that desire appear. We get our desires from the larger system. They're implanted in us. And they're implanted in us, and then we're given thoughts which are an operating system, which are there to help us understand why we should want that desire that was given to us. And it seems as though we are taking steps in order to fulfill that desire, and we say, well, and then I attracted it to me. No, that system is set up. It was going to happen anyway, because our lives are not these little things that we imagine that they are. Our life is actually the whole system. And the whole system is saying, hey, you're supposed to come this way. You're supposed to develop this way. And the only way I can get you to move is by implanting a desire in you and making you think you attracted it to you. But actually what happened is that it attracted us to want what it wants to give us, which is the real place where we're going. And we can't imagine that place. We don't see it. We think of things in terms of time, space, and desire. The spiritual law, the one that really is functioning, the inverted higher one, is not about the desire and the fulfillment of the individual. Desire plays an important part. It's a motivating force behind life. And the spiritual world is made up of something like that, but there's a whole other much more powerful level. There, it's not about the desire. It's about the intention behind the desire. And that's actually what nature is trying to get us to be attracted to feel it as though it was our own. It's interesting how it will use something like the law of attraction to both inspire us and disappoint us. Inspiration is clear. The purpose of disappointment is less clear, but it's equally as valuable, because when we try to fulfill personal desires, get the thing that we want, and we say, yeah, we agree, we're going to follow this thing, and we get it, and then we feel the eventual emptiness of that thing, and it doesn't actually supply us with the happiness that we had imagined, then we're open to other desires that were invisible to us because they're not as personal. We start to identify happiness and fulfillment with seeing it reflected in others. And now we're starting to, get a toehold on the spiritual realm, the collective of forces, the place where the desires actually come from. And we find there that it's not about the desires themselves. It's about the intention behind the desires. It doesn't matter, actually, what it is we want. It doesn't even matter whether we get them. The law of equivalence of form, which is the spiritual law, is one in which it enables us to move in a spiritual realm where there is no time, no wonder we don't know what's coming, or space, attracting something that isn't near us to change our reality. These things are not real, because it's not that we bend nature and attract things to us. It's that we allow nature to bend us and attract us, and we agree with it and feel it as though it is our desire, because, actually, the only desires we feel are nature's desire. The only intention we actually feel, whether the way that it is or in its inverse, is the intention of nature. The only thing that stops us from experiencing everything as our own and for the benefit of everything and incomplete fulfillment is just this idea of trying to fulfill ourselves rather than recognizing that the whole thing is fulfillment. So the law of equivalence of form is to identify our intention and experience our intention with the intention of nature. And it's not that we're guessing. It's telling us along the road at every turn. It's training us to be able to feel this as our own desire. And the law of attraction, as you can now see, is the opposite of that. It's trying to train nature to satisfy me, even though that whole thing is an illusion. Please comment, like, share, and click on the notification bell.